Hungary's leader, Viktor Orban, says, "We dug a hole for the Russians to fall into, but we fell into it ourselves. The European Union is divided." The sanctions against Russia were not imposed democratically, the Hungarian Prime Minister claims. The position that the European sanctions against Russia have not met the expectations of the European Parliament, Brussels, was expressed by the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, pointing out that Europe remains divided on whether or not to continue these sanctions, which he said have backfired on Europe. He says the sanctions have not worked as Brussels expected when they imposed them. We came up with a plan to dig the hole for the Russians, and in the end we were the ones who fell in it. And now we have to decide what to do. The EU says to keep digging, but this does not seem reasonable enough, Orban said, speaking to the Hungarian radio station Kossuth. He said Europe is divided. As Orban said, Europe is currently divided into two camps. One is a zealous believer in these actions, the sanctions. The other calls on the entire continent to review the policy of sanctions against Russia, Orban emphasized. Undemocratic restrictions. The restrictions imposed on Russia were not imposed democratically, he said. This decision was made by unelected bureaucrats. He's talking obviously about Ursula von der Leyen. She's not elected. The decision was made by unelected bureaucrats and the Brussels elite, the Hungarian Prime Minister claims. It's noted that this is not the first time that the Hungarian Prime Minister has attacked Europe for its decision on imposing sanctions on Russia. About 2 weeks ago, Orban underlined that unless the EU lifts its sanctions and until a diplomatic solution to the Ukrainian crisis is found, energy prices are not going to decrease. In fact, he mentioned that it was Europe's sanctions that triggered inflation and the jump in energy prices. Extends the ceiling on gas. On this context, Orban announced that the Hungarian government will extend the ceiling on the prices of natural gas and some basic foodstuffs in the coming weeks. Inflation in Hungary has topped 20% in September, beating market estimates fueled by a 35.2% rise in food prices and a 62.1% rise in energy prices after the Orban government cut subsidies to utility bills for some households. Orban stressed that all sides of economic policy must come together to achieve the goal of capping price increases in a single-digit range by the end of next year, including the possible extension of the ceiling on prices for some products. This is why we will, he said, be making decisions continuously in the coming weeks to expand the list of centrally controlled products with new ones. There will be new products whose prices we want to be maximized centrally, as it is already the case with 6 basic food types, Orban said. Ceiling on fuel and basic food. Last month, Orban's government extended the price ceiling on fuel and basic food until the end of the year in a bid to protect households from skyrocketing costs. Economists polled by Reuters on average expect inflation to rise to 15% next year from 14% expected this year, with price increases exceeding the central bank's target of 2% to 4% even in 2024. This is from bankingnews.gr, and I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.